What's going to happen is we're going to open up the show just with talking, and then we'll go into the music.
Okay.
Right? Isn't that how I have this? Yeah. So what's going to happen is we're going to go into the sound clip that I have selected.
Okay.
And then we're going to go into the opening music.
Okay.
All right. So here we go. We're going to try this out. For those of you watching at home, thanks for joining us today. All right. So we're going to start the show in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Firsts in Fiction. We're your first stop for learning to write better fiction, where we talk about the craft of writing. Coming up, is dystopian fiction hurting our future?
Amazon is manipulating you.
Vampires, werewolves, love triangles, and child death matches have entertained us. But what's the next big trend in fiction?
All that and more on this episode of Firsts in Fiction.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
All right, Aaron. So this is our.
I like the music, though. I like the music. I was dancing. I think I should probably in the future never dance again. That would be fantastic.
So we've got a new little bit of a format here. We're going to be talking more about writing in general and some interesting topics and things like that, instead of just choosing a single topic primarily and talking about that lecture style. So, yeah, just wanted to say thank you everyone for joining us who's joined us. There's some bumps in the road just as we start out here, but we're going to work our way through it. So, Aaron, what have you been up to, man?
What haven't I been up to? Working. I just spoke at a High Desert chapter of the California Writers Club.
Yeah.
On character development, the 3 pillars of characters. So that was kind of fun. Had a good opportunity there. Met some nice people and some good conversations about writing going on there. And
Nice.
something our listener Molly Jo set up for me. So she's very cool that way. So I did that, and then just other than that, trying to keep up with the crazy workload that I've got. How about you?
You know what? Yeah, work is one of the things that I've been doing a lot of lately. A lot of travel work. Yeah, Friday I put in like a 19-hour day.
Okay.
It was amazing. I drove out, worked a full day, and drove all the way back to a place called Livingston. It's really far. It's so anyway, I haven't been doing a whole lot of writing. I have been doing some reading, audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. Hey, I was going to ask you. So, where do people go to find the talk you gave on the writers at the writers conference thing that you just did? The High Desert Writers Club, right?
Yeah. There's not a video of it that I'm aware of, or a recording of it that I'm aware of, but I do have my notes that I've made available. So basically, if you just go to aarongansky.com, there's an option to contact me there, or you can just Facebook me or tweet me on Twitter, on the tweeter, and I'll just say, can I get a copy of the notes, and I'll send the notes out to you in PowerPoint format. And so as long as you can open that, you can kind of look through my notes, and it doesn't have all my extensive conversation points, but all my wonderfully funny stories that I told. And but other than that, it's got the information that's good. So.
Right on. Very cool. Yeah, I was trying to find a clip of George Bush's Twitter comment. I didn't find it in time.
Yeah.
You
We're
can
going
find
to
me
have
on
that
Twitter.
on speed dial.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit here about some news. We're going to do a little transition here. See how it goes. It's not working.
It's okay. I'm following your lead.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll cut out all the awkward silences on the actual podcast.
All right, this is the news segment. So first thing,
We look so different.
it's gonna all work out in the end here. This is a first attempt we're going through, so just excuse the hard transitions here. So the first thing I would like to take your attention to is an article on BBC.com where the question of dystopian future fiction is one of these things that's kind of challenging challenging readers this day, and they're wondering if it's impacting our future in a negative way. One of the questions that it asks is, like, can writers shape the future? So I don't know about you, but have you ever read a science fiction book or seen a science fiction movie and just thought, hey, someday I would like to see those types of technologies actually implemented?
I think, yeah, I mean that's pretty much the entire genre of science fiction. You think of things like, well, science fiction has long driven scientific advances, and if you talk with a lot of inventors, they'll point to their particular favorite science fiction genre or series rather, and say this is what really inspired me. Cell phones. You look back in the 1960s at Star Trek. Cell phones came predominantly from that idea of the communicator. I don't think we have transporter beams just yet, but I'm sure we're working on them someplace, but like some of the laser technology and stuff like that.
What would you do if you could just teleport anywhere? What would your typical day look like?
Oh wow, it would cut down on my travel time for sure. That would make me happy. I don't even know, man. I mean, more like vacations, I guess. Like probably go to places further away. I don't even know.
Yeah,
probably beam up to the starship.
You know what? I'd probably teleport to work, start my day, and work until lunchtime, and then at lunchtime I'd go ahead and teleport to like China, have some lunch, some authentic Chinese food.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Vietnam. I really like Vietnamese food.
Okay.
Teleport back, finish out the day, then teleport home.
Then
go ahead and...
You didn't account for time at customs, getting through customs.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd probably end up in like Italy, sipping on a nice Italian coffee.
I feel
something like that.
Yeah, but I feel like the transporters would, like, you're not going to have one in your home right away. Like, you're going to have to go like to the airport or the teleportation port.
Well, yeah, obviously. 'Cause think about what that would do for criminals if they could just teleport wherever they wanted, anytime they wanted. That'd be crazy.
Leave it to your mind.
Like, yeah, we'll go ahead and teleport into this bank vault here, and that'll be awesome. We'll just grab all the money.
Well, I think in context of like science fiction driving these advances, in context of fiction, writing fiction, one thing that's interesting, and I think one thing that writers do is, okay, if there's going to be a technological advancement, how are people going to use it, and how are people going to misuse it? And a lot of times that's where you get some great plot points for your science fiction novels. That's going to be true for, I mean, no matter how much you want to improve science for the betterment of mankind, there's always going to be somebody who's going to misuse that technology. And I think that's a very common theme in science fiction, is not necessarily that technology itself is bad, but the misuse of technology is bad.
Yeah. Well, this kind of like dovetails back into the topic, which is dystopian future ruining young readers and propelling them onto like a path where it's going to, they're not going to have a nice vision of the future that they're going to try to emulate. Because the gist of the article is you've got young writers who are looking to the fiction of today in order to help to shape the future that they're eventually going to build. And if all we're giving is dystopian future, what kind of a future are we going to be building for ourselves when these kids eventually grow up and become engineers and become scientists and start working at NASA? And what are they striving for? What are they going to achieve? Some kind of a serum that's going to control everyone and make them kill everyone? That's Divergent, by the way.
Yeah. I think that's based on faulty logic, though. It's based on a premise that says that the people who are the scientific engineers and things like that are automatically going to identify with the villains and try and, for example, you read the Hunger Games, and how many people are reading that going, I really identify with President Snow. I really want to take over the world.
No, no,
I
no.
want to be leader of the Capitol.
No, it's all about toppling the establishment. That's the thing. That's you know, if you thought about it, you could look at our government and start seeing it in a dystopian light. But
Yeah, you
anyway,
could.
just food
Sure.
for thought.
I feel like that was a shot at Obama.
What? No.
Was that?
Is that
Was it? Was that?
is that our president?
I
Right
don't know. Obamacare? Are you trying to pick a
now?
fight
Oh
with
man,
Obamacare right now?
let's not
So,
go there, man.
yeah,
That's
in
not a
politics.
show.
This is not a political show. But yeah, no, I think it's fine. You know who we should have had on tonight was Andrew Penabianco, who's way smarter than me. But he wrote an essay called "The Gestalt of Star Trek" that I use in my classes when I teach. Great little piece about going to a Star Trek convention. But what he says far more eloquently than I'm going to say now is what he likes about Star Trek is that Gene Roddenberry had a more utopian vision of the future, and the world that existed on the ship was very much a utopia, and whatever conflict arose came predominantly in the form of basically things that are off the ship, off of Earth, etc.
Outside
And
influences. Yeah.
right. So rather than looking into ourselves to find the conflict, the idea was that we bonded together as humanity and created kind of a utopian society, and egalitarian, if you will, and even incorporated other species and races, etc. And so that was the central idea of why Star Trek really resonated with him. And of course, he says it much, much better than I do, but he'd have some really interesting and positive things possibly to say about this topic.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the next story on our list, which is Amazon. I don't know. Did you see
Yeah.
this one? Did you actually look at it?
I did, just a little bit. So
Yes. Okay. So essentially, what's happening here is there's some writers in Berlin that are upset because Amazon is trying to force them to come down on their prices. So here's a quote right here. Amazon's customers have until now had the impression that the lists that they've created, which is they create these recommended reading lists and show these lists that have Kindle books that are available, and the customers have had the impression that these lists are not manipulated and that they could trust Amazon. Apparently, that is not the case. This is from their letter. And they manipulate recommendation lists, and they use authors in their books as a bargaining chip to exact deeper discounts. So what they're trying to do is manipulate readers into saying, please make this available, and they're not selling the books that are available in electronic format, but they are higher than the Amazon Kindle $10 cap.
right.
Have you ever seen a Kindle book that's over $10?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So Amazon is essentially, putting their foot down and saying, writers, we don't care what kind of work you put into this book. We don't care at all. We want to charge the customers $10 max. So you can't make any more money on this. What do you think?
I'm torn on it. There's part of me that says, that Amazon is going to get a bad rap from this. Obviously, they already are. But at the same rate, they're a private company, and they're providing a service to consumers, and so they've got a right, especially if you're using Amazon Publishing, to do that. I guess they've got. I mean, is it shady? Yeah, it's shady. Is it seedy? Probably. But from a consumer standpoint, am I really upset that Amazon is trying to find the best deals for me? That they're trying to find inexpensive things for me? So from a consumer standpoint, I'm not super upset about it. From a writing standpoint, because my income is not solely based on what I make writing, it's a lot easier for me to say it's not a big deal.
Mhm.
I'm not getting rich off my books anyway. I'm making a little bit of money here and there. It's enough to buy myself a pack of Magic cards, maybe, every month or two. But for the most part, I'm not getting rich off of it. I never went into writing to get rich off of it. However, if my sole income is my writing, and I want to make my book $11, and Amazon says no, that could be problematic. But for
Yeah,
the most part, I don't know why you would charge more than $10 for an ebook anyway. You're not having to pay production costs for
that's what I
it.
was gonna say. I think these writers are being a little bit crazy. Yeah, okay. Amazon manipulates lists in order to try to manipulate the authors into dropping their prices because they're not going to publish lists. Why would they publish a list and show these books as recommended books when they're not available on Kindle because Amazon wants to only charge $10? You know, I kind of side with Amazon on this one. Like, you guys are charging more, as much or more, for an electronic book that costs you essentially nothing to produce
And the
than
royalties
more
on
than
it.
you'd be charging for, yeah, more than you'd be charging for a paperback or a hardcover. It's
The
crazy.
you would be making the royalties that you make from an ebook are generally better than what you make for a print book because there are so many costs associated with making a print book. So well, I don't understand why you would want such a high margin of royalties on your ebook. I mean, obviously you want the most that you can get, but I'm not going to charge
That's
15
all
bucks
profit,
for an
man.
ebook. I don't think consumers are even going to buy it. I mean, supply and demand, right? Like,
Yeah,
you have
that's
to
true.
look at what other
Yeah, maybe
books are priced
maybe what
at.
Amazon should do is they should just put it out there and then see how many people actually buy it. I, let the market take care of itself. Eventually, maybe people will lower their prices and come down under the $10 bracket. I don't know. It's an idea, but then you kind of start polluting the market with these books that are overpriced. When somebody does a search, should that book come up, or should a book that people are actually going to buy come up? Are you just, like I say, polluting the search results? I don't know. That kind of annoys me. If I'm
Yeah,
searching
that
for a
that
Kindle
part.
book,
Yeah, that
I
part
figure
is
it's going to
weird.
be cheap.
The manipulation of the lists is kind of sad, and it's one of those things where success begets success, you know.
Hmm.
And so it's like the more Amazon pushes something, the more successful it's going to become, and the more it's going to sell, and the more it sells, the higher up it's going to go on the list. So the Amazon's going to push it more, so it's going to get more sales. So there's kind of a critical threshold that if you can achieve that, a lot of the marketing kind of takes care of itself. Um, I've not reached that just yet. I keep
Hmm.
praying each night that I'll hit that critical threshold, and it hasn't happened yet. So maybe another 2 or 3 decades, and maybe I'll get it there.
Yeah.
So oh, excuse me, pardon me.
What is the next big trend in fiction? USA Today has some theories in their article that they put out. Maybe you could post that link in the chat room,
Sure,
Aaron.
on it.
This is a topic that I think would be interesting for you and I to talk about. Some of the things that they talk about are, and I don't know if these are actually good, but loveless futures, which is interesting. An, an enemy, love, becomes a foreign concept, and dark figures have a variety of solutions for eradicating the organic emotion. So it's essentially a future without love.
Yeah.
I think that's like a subgenre. I don't feel like that is an entire genre in and of itself.
You
I
see
don't
it
know.
play out a lot in some of these dystopian future kind of things. The one I'm thinking of specifically is The Giver. I know that was a big thing with The Giver. And
What's that
then
one about?
The
What's it
Giver,
called?
oh, they just released a movie on it.
Is
I
this the
haven't
one
seen
where
the movie.
the kid like I forget. He
It becomes essentially like the keeper of the memories.
right. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, interesting.
yeah, and it's a great book, but
Mhm.
there they've chemically altered, you know, humanity in order to suppress natural urges.
Mhm.
So you don't really fall in love. You're just told this is going to be your spouse, and you're like, sure, fine, whatever.
Right.
Um, you see it occasionally. Like you say, I feel like it's more a subplot of kind of a larger thing. But I mean, it's the Romeo and Juliet, right? Like, you're going to get that kind of a thing. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like Twilight kind of did that. The Loveless Future thing, I just don't see that as being viable. And it says virtual reality cyberpunk, um, which is interesting. Virtual reality, I feel like. Oh, did we lose Aaron?
Nope.
Okay.
I was
Uh,
adjusting. I didn't want to make people sick by moving my
oh, I see.
computer.
I got you. Okay. Virtual reality. So cyberpunk, virtual reality, where I now recognize Google Glass is coming out and some other technologies are trying to make their way into the market where they're doing heads-up displays in your glasses, or they're doing some new and exciting things with virtual reality. But really, I don't feel like virtual reality is something that's really tugging at people's minds right now. I don't know. What do you think? You think this is an entire genre?
I mean,
Something
it
that's going to
can
take the
be.
market?
I think it can be. I think it's another subgenre of the larger science fiction dystopian future kind of thing, and I think that's kind of where this article is going with it. But yeah, I mean, really, what I think readers want to see is a book that's kind of feels a little bit like virtual reality, maybe kind of like Tron, maybe not necessarily Tron, maybe like more of a fantasy setting,
You're thinking of
um,
Portal style?
kind of Portal style, sure.
Yeah.
Something like the Hand of Adonai series, which should be coming out in February by some guy. What is that guy's name?
Wow.
Um,
That is pretty shameless, man.
oh, it's me. That's right. It's mine. That was a long way to go for shameless self promotion.
Yeah. By the way, I've given you some feedback on that. Have you taken that to heart, or are you still ignoring me?
Pretty much I'm ignoring you.
Okay,
So
just a second.
uh,
I just wanted to
th-
know.
I'm exercising the author's right to say that you're wrong. So, but we can talk about it a little bit later. But uh, yeah,
Fairy tale retellings. So this is another one that USA Today puts forward. Everyone knows Rapunzel with her hair so long, Peter Pan who never grows up, and all the classic stories read to us at bedtime, or um, what is that, Disney-fied on our TV and computer screens. But what if Cinderella were a cyborg? Or the evil stepmother, is she really so evil? What exactly happened between Peter Pan and Tiger Lily? I have no idea who Tiger Lily is. Who's Tiger Lily?
Tiger Lily is. I have no idea. Don't even know.
Okay.
No clue. So yeah, fairy tale retellings are actually really popular. I've seen a lot of those, and it gets. I see a lot of people getting excited about them. There was some television series some time ago. Um, I can't even. My wife used to watch them. Oh, now I'm embarrassed. Once Upon a Time or something like that. Or oh man, did you help me out, Steve? Did you ever watch that
Yeah.
show?
It's the one that's like
The whole
the whole.
town full of fairy tales and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Uh, maybe the chat room can answer that one for us.
yeah.
But
But
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's um,
kind of the grim spin on it.
they also did the show Merlin,
Yeah,
which was kind of like the retelling of King Arthur and Merlin and all that. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like it's been done. I'm not really sure if that's going to be the next new thing, but I will say that that is it could still be a truly fresh idea to go back and take some of the classics. Like they've done that a lot with Romeo and Juliet, for example, or any Shakespeare play. They've redone a lot of Shakespeare plays in movie form or book form nowadays, just because
yeah,
they're really good, and typically you're talking like a three-act structure, and it translates pretty well.
yeah. Well,
So
and that's what I think works about these is that I talk about the shapes that stories take, which I borrowed from Jerome Stern, Making Shapely Fiction. But these are all shapes. Fairy tales are their own shapes in the same way that most Shakespeare plays are shapes. Things tend to fit nicely into these structures. Um, and they're really easy to kind of adapt to modernize or to put an author's own unique vision or spin on the project. So I think that's why they keep coming back, because it's familiar to readers, but it's still strange enough and original enough to for readers to want to see how the author handles it and how they're going to handle particular things.
I kind of feel like it goes toward that archetypes direction where you're really familiar with certain archetypes, and
Hmm.
these stories embody that. And so taking them and applying them to modern day is really I mean, that's like using an archetype, a well-known thing that resonates with humans and really gets and tugs at those emotional chords. So,
Yeah,
male
agreed.
protagonists.
I don't think they're any good.
For whatever reason, female
Oh,
protagonists, more or less, I'm quoting here, female protagonists, more or less, dominate dystopian YA novels. All you have to do is say Katniss Everdeen, and people immediately know what kind of girl you're talking about. So, the male protagonists do seem to have fallen slightly out of favor these days. Um, but who was it? Grasshopper Jungle features Austin Zerba, a 16-year-old boy grappling with confusion about his sexual orientation. And then I thought there was another one in here that it was mentioning. But in any case, there's very few that have a male protagonist. Although I will say the movie adaptation of Ender's Game may actually start to shift the tide back. Ender's Game, I mean, that was written a while ago, but it's got a male protagonist.
yeah, so does Maze Runner, and Maze Runner
There
I
you
think
go.
is going to be a
That's the one
thing.
I was thinking. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think right now because of Katniss Everdeen and what is it, Bella or some nonsense, um, that whole scene, you have to look
But by the
at.
way, let me interrupt you for just a second. It is Once Upon a Time.
Oh, is that
We're,
the
we're
thing?
receiving confirmation in the chat room.
Oh, yay. Yeah,
So,
I'm a little bit behind on the chat room, so if you're there, you might as well kind of go ahead and read
and
while I.
Tiger Lily is the maiden in Peter Pan. I had no idea.
Well, there you go.
And Tess de Groot has asked if we could please post the show notes.
Yeah, I do. Those go up, Tess. Those go up on Sundays. Well, very late Sundays, early Monday morning, somewhere around midnight Monday morning. So it's there for your morning commute into work. But yeah, there's usually a lag because I've got other things to do with my week, and like Sunday's the day I can get to actually posting those show notes. But trying to include the links in our chat room right now so that you can check them out now and you don't have to wait till Sunday. But there's that. So the thing with the female protagonist, you have to look at who's writing, and you have to look at who's reading and who's buying, and that is still,
Are you trying
as
to say
much
that
as it saddens me, it's
teenage
still
girls?
large. Yes, yes, are both writing and buying, and so there's a larger market share for that, and I think publishers are keen to that. However, I mean, look at the success of Harry Potter, which crossed genres. That sounded really not genres. It crossed genders. That sounds even weirder. Um, but you had guys buying it, you had girls buying it, and I think what publishers fail to realize in all their market research is that if the book is well written, if it's a good story, it's going to sell both to male and female. Um, you know, Ender's Game is great, and it's predominantly bought by male readers, but it's not exclusively bought by male readers. So it's, for me, it's one of those things. A male protagonist is fine. Are we going to see more YA dystopian novels with male protagonists? Possibly. I mean, the genre is hot, and publishers like to publish what's hot, and sometimes writers like to write what's hot. And so you'll probably see more male writers, and then by default probably see more male protagonists, I would imagine.
So what do you think is going to be the emerging trend, in your opinion?
If I could figure that out and answer that, I would be probably a millionaire or more. That's what all publishing does, is try and figure out what the next Harry Potter is, and that's all you hear. The next
Yeah.
Harry Potter, the next Twilight, the next Divergent. Nobody wants. Publishers are very leery to take risks on new and unproven ideas, but I think readers are also hungry for. I mean, there's definitely people who are genre readers, but I think they're thirsty and they're hungry for originality within the genre.
See, I think that there's almost a bouncing back and forth between more real fiction and then more fantasy type fiction,
Right.
where I think just we go through cycles where you see things like forensics really dominating the market, like when Patricia Cornwell was really hot, and um, you know, then
John Grisham, lawyer
yeah,
novels.
right, exactly.
Michael
And then
Crichton, medical suspense. Robin Cook.
Michael Crichton. Thank you for thinking of all the names I can't right now.
You're welcome.
But
James Patterson, crazy horror,
yeah,
Criminal Minds, Stephen King, everything horror. Yeah,
yeah.
Dean Koontz.
Then we start to get even Stephen King with his Dark Tower series. We started to get into this more fantasy-oriented type of genre where the world is looking for more of an escape rather than more of a voyeurism into the world of forensics and what's going
Right.
on, how the crime system works, that sort of thing. Now people are transitioned into this rather than high fantasy and wonder. They've gone into this dystopian fantasy where it's kind of like rough and rugged, and it gives you a look at what could be if everything went wrong. And I think maybe the next transition, because I feel like we've gone dark for so long. I feel like maybe the next transition might be back to more realism, but I think maybe we'll see some comedy start to emerge, and you'll see characters being more comedic and a little more over the top. A book that's more uplifting, but real. I don't know. That's just my own prediction. I have nothing to
Well,
base it on.
if you look at like books like Diary of a Wimpy Kid and some of those Captain Underpants, and I mentioned those like in seriousness. Those readers grow up,
Hmm.
and some of them continue to read, and they want to buy books and stuff. And so they're lighthearted, they're humorous. Sometimes can deal with more important issues or I guess more weighty issues, if you will. Um, yeah, I mean, there's always a place for I think comedy. You look at guys. You look at people like Tina Fey
Yeah.
and Jim Gaffigan writing books. So there's a place for them, for sure. One of my favorite books I've ever read was by Paul Reiser. Babyhood, well, Couplehood was great, and then there was Babyhood, which was also great. And anybody who is married or getting married should read Couplehood, and anyone who's having a baby should read Babyhood. It's one of those books you read it, and then people look at you funny because you're laughing out loud, on the train on the way to work, or, in the
Wouldn't that
line
be
to
great?
teleport to work.
Yeah,
So
there you go. Wouldn't that be great if there was more of that, just people randomly laughing?
yeah,
I was telling my
that
wife, I was saying, I think I've probably told you this too. I think that if like at the soup kitchens and the homeless shelters, if they just handed out old Bluetooths to the homeless people, that it would be so much cooler. Like when you're walking down the road and you see this guy and he's talking to himself, but then he turns his head and he's got a Bluetooth in, you're like, oh, he's not crazy. Like that's a way of perception-wise
wow.
changing the view of crazy people walking down the street, and you feel just a little bit better, right?
This is why I wear Bluetooth.
Yeah,
This is why I
exactly.
wear Bluetooth. Yeah, so I can talk to
Uh,
myself and not be homeless.
Molly Joe would like us to know that she is going to be the next thing in literature.
Yeah, I mean
So
that's
just
for sure.
she's calling it. She thinks that is going to be the next new trend.
What I like
So
about her is her humility. Um,
I agree.
she's
Yeah.
very soft-spoken and withdrawn, and
She's
but
also pragmatic. She's just calling it as she sees it.
that's
I
true.
think.
That's
So,
true. I mean, so good
all
times.
right, man. We're going to go ahead and transition here to popular science. Facial recognition software. This is something I wanted to have in the show as just a quick little um, uh, visit to what's going on in popular science right now to kind of get the creative juices rolling, um, to maybe discover a new direction to go in. This is a weird one, in fact. Facial recognition is not just good for security purposes or maybe even like recognizing your face in an airport terminal or something like that. it's actually good to find hot dates and cute pets. Did you
Now,
get
it's not to get those confused, because somehow I feel like the hot date or a dog, and you'd be like, this is, somehow the wires got crossed, and while this is a very attractive dog, that's not what I was looking for. So, yeah, I don't
Oh,
know.
that's
It's
great.
bizarre, man. I mean, facial recognition software is hooray for that, but I guess eventually, with we're talking a little bit about science fiction, and I think a lot of biometrics were inspired by trends in science fiction, and I think the real
Yeah.
mark of technology is its proliferation and how it integrates into our normal lives. The military has a ton of stuff that we will probably not see in our lifetime, but that technology exists, and when it's around long enough, it starts to make inroads into our daily lives, and we've got our smartphones now, which,
Right.
I mean, who could have imagined? I remember when people were amazed that a computer could fit in one room.
Yeah.
Like, that was a big deal, and now it's like it fits in my pocket, yo. So like
Well, have you seen the new Apple iWatch?
oh, it's so Apple's continuing to rip off Samsung now, so that's cool. They used to be
Well,
innovative, and now
you know
they're
what?
just ripping
Okay.
people off.
I
What?
know that is Samsung's latest ad campaign is to say, "Hey, look, iPhone's ripping us off." I'm sorry, but iPhone takes all of the random stuff that Android does and actually does it in a very user-friendly way. No offense to Android or anything. I was an avid Android user. I bought the very first Android device that ever came out. I was a proud owner, and that was my favorite phone that I ever had until I got an iPhone. Just saying,
Yeah,
iPhone,
I I've had some
iPhone.
Apple products, and I tend to like things that work. So
What are
I
you
kind
talking
of had
about?
to, yeah.
Are you trying to say it didn't work? What did
Macs are terrible.
you jailbreak it or something?
Eventually, yes, because it was so
Yeah.
awful and did not work that I decided, well, I can't hurt it by jailbreaking it. It's
I
already
gotta say,
awful enough as it
if you-
is.
if you're buying 3 generations ago technology, then yeah,
It
you're
was
probably
not three
right
generations
because
yet.
they obsolete their technology. That is something I firmly
Yes.
believe. It's a conspiracy theory, but I think it's real. I think it's pretty real.
They and I
I
don't
did
like their business tactics, but
I did an
we're.
iOS update on one of my iPod touches,
Hmm.
and it was a pretty old one. It was like a first or second generation iPod Touch, and I think I was installing like iOS version 4 or something on it. And just the act of installing the iOS on it killed it. I brought it into the Apple Store, and they told me that with like this evil conniving smile, they looked at me, and the eyebrow went up.
Hmm.
They said, "Your device is destroyed. We can give you a new one. All you have to do is pay us $500." I said, "No,
See,
that's okay, thanks," and I left.
that's classy. That's classy. I mean, I love how they do that. Like, they sell you an inferior product that stops working, and
I'm
then they
not
try and sell
saying
you another one.
I'm not saying that Apple is evil.
They are
I'm
evil.
I'm just
I will
saying
say.
I'm just saying that maybe that guy at the Genius Store was evil because yeah, he
And
had
also poorly named. The Genius Store. Come on now, people.
the
Like,
it
there's,
should be Evil Genius Store, right?
yeah, oh, it's just the evil story. We take the genius part out. So
So we're talking about facial recognition.
yeah, that
uh,
we
oh,
were.
but I got to tell you, so my computer has facial recognition. Every time it boots up, I have to go like this and look at the camera like this. You can't see me. Those of you listening on audio, I'm tilting my head forward and looking weird because that is the only way that unlocks my computer. Every other facial position, for some reason, doesn't work. I don't know. It's weird.
I think something's wrong with your face. Uh, that's not true. I
Oh,
don't think that. That's
okay.
just it's all out of love. It's all out of
Um,
love.
Molly Joe would like you to know that iPhones rock. Aaron,
It's,
I think
see, Molly
I
Joe
think
living in her delusional world.
I think that iPhones rock. Aaron is
here's here, here's my thing. Like, there are so many Mac apologists out there that want to just throw PC under the bus that I feel like I'm overreacting and trying to go the
PC
other way now.
PC has a place. I mean, they run all financial institutions and everything else that's out there, and the only reason that Mac doesn't have the problems that PC does is because Mac isn't used everywhere. If Mac started running financial institutions and it started, like, real money passed through Macs, all of a sudden hackers would be a lot more interested in making Mac's day horrible.
Yep.
You know, that
Yeah.
the whole infrastructure is the reason it's fast and the reason it's easy and the reason it's got such great quote unquote security, although with all the leaked celebrity pictures recently, I don't
Yep.
know how secure it is.
Yep. I was just thinking
You
that.
know, it's got all of that simply because no one's ever taken the time to actually crack it.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, we could stop there because we're talking about writing, not tech.
Yeah.
So-
Or we should be. We're talking about tech. We should be talking about writing, but
That's right. Yeah.
So-
Facial recognition software cuts its teeth on criminal mugshots, but now it offers an arguably more civic service, uniting people with potential life partners. Algorithms search for a match based on your prior dating or pet ownership preferences. Friends accuse you of living in the past. Now you can relive it. So this is a little bit creepy. You could do a search across an internet database which will match a pet to you that has a very similar look to it as the pets that you've previously owned, or a pet that you've previously owned. So you can find a dog or a cat that looks remarkably similar to your dead dog or cat, or a living one, and then you could go around saying they're twins.
or you could just stuff your dead animal, keep it next to you on the bed,
Roy
creep
Rogers.
people out.
Yeah.
You ever
You
watch
know-
that show, Scrubs?
You know, Dale Evans was afraid that
Yeah.
if she died before Roy Rogers, that Roy Rogers was going to stuff her and put her in his museum.
That would have been so awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
Creepy,
one thing. The other thing that it does is it will actually match you based on people who you find attractive. It will scan a database of people's pictures and match you up with somebody who looks similar to those people that you find attractive, which is interesting. The dating service 3-Day Rule, which recently partnered with Match.com, feeds a customer's relationship history and preferences into software that hunts for potential dates with similar physical characteristics. Services software examines facial shape, jaw structure, and eyes and nose coordinates. What are your eyes and nose coordinates?
Negative 2.76 by 18 beautiful 0.9. I don't know. So
Anyway.
I've never mapped it out. Yeah, that's just bizarre. It feels again, proliferation of technology coming into our daily lives. How can we I think it's Andrew Penabianco who says Daffy crap. So it was from his Gestalt of Star Trek. He said it's, before technology became so much of the Daffy crap that it is today, and that makes me think of Daffy crap. Like,
Yeah.
here we've got technology that could actually do some good for society, and we're going to use it for dating sites and pet owners. Like, really, that's how we choose to use it?
Yeah.
Okay. Good times.
Yep. Anyway, all right. Well, that's enough for Popular Scientist. Popular Science. Let's move on to our next segment, which we don't have a special guest today, so we're just going to go ahead and move right into our main topic. All right, Aaron, our main topic. Does where you live affect your writing?
Yes. All right. Thank you for joining us. Yeah.
Yeah. Does where you write affect your writing? So this is by Mohsin Hamid, and one of the things he says is J.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit might have read a little differently had he been a resident of Osaka instead of Oxfordshire. Oxfordshire. Sounds a lot like the Shire, right?
Strangely does.
George Lucas, he lives in the Saharan desert, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
At least he did when he wrote everything in Star Wars that took place on Tatooine.
Yeah.
Is it Tatooine? Is that the desert one?
Good job. Good job.
Is it?
You
Did I get it
don't
right?
know that? Yes.
It feels wrong to me right now.
No, it's not wrong. It's Tatooine.
Hoth is the ice planet.
Yes.
Dagobah is the swamp planet.
Yes.
Tatooine's the desert planet. Okay, well, sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I think it does. Well, I mean, this kind of goes into what I'm pretty militaristic with my, or militant, probably a better word, with my assertion that the setting is inextricable from character. And I love how people, new writers especially, myself included, we like to develop our characters without thinking of where they grew up or what types of life events have formed them. And I keep going back to this idea of you can take the cowboy out of Texas, but you can't take Texas out of the cowboy.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna tell
Yeah,
you what.
yeah, man, I'll tell you what. It's the same thing, though. Our setting is inextricable from our character. So, of course, where you grow up is going to affect how you write, the types of things that you write about, the things that you think are important enough to write about. Um,
Yeah.
I would agree with that, yeah,
So
for
okay,
sure.
so where do you live, Aaron?
Smack dab in the middle of the desert.
That's right. I always like to say it's not the end of the world, but you can see it from here.
Yeah, oh my goodness. You should
I
see the
also like to
directions I
say,
give people to my house.
yeah,
You know,
I,
I,
I
I, I tell them drive down the road, keep driving. When you see the place where all the dead bodies are buried, keep going, keep driving. Turn
yeah,
left to the big
exactly.
parrot.
That's actually literally true. There's a cemetery. Well, depending on the way you go to your house, there's an actual cemetery out there.
I was just talking about the place where the mob just drops all the dead bodies.
Oh yeah. Well, there's
Yeah,
that too.
yeah.
Actually, there's a place just down in the Cajon Pass down there, between civilization and us, where the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club used to take and dump bodies as well as stolen motorcycle frames because the motorcycle frames have the VIN numbers on them. So what they do is they'd steal a motorcycle, take all the guts out of it, then take the frame and chuck it in the river where it would sink to the bottom, and then they would get an aftermarket frame and have a brand new bike for a very small investment. Places do things to you.
How
Since I
many?
moved
How
back
many?
to what? Huh?
How many? How many motorcycles have you stolen, Steve?
Me personally?
Oh, yeah.
You know what? Until there's teleportation devices, I'm not comfortable telling you that.
Okay, sounds fair.
So this is the author speaking. Since I moved back to Lahore from London 5 years ago, I've attended a funeral for a family friend who was assassinated, seen 3,000 eager young people try to cram into a 1,000-seat auditorium for a 9 a.m. lecture at a literary festival, had windows blown in by a gas explosion in a nearby restaurant, inherited a Jack Russell Terrier from an uncle, met bootleggers whose round-the-clock home delivery service puts that of New York City drug dealers to shame, and been grilled on my reading tastes by an audiologist's assistant. Um, so all of these are personal experiences that tend to shape you and influence your writing. So like I asked you, you basically live in the middle of the desert.
Mm-hmm.
Your book that you just published takes place in,
The middle of the desert.
yeah,
My dad lived, I can't remember, I don't even remember how many years he lived in San Diego, but a lot of years. His first books took place in San Diego. But I think it's more about where you set your, just where you set the setting of your novels. For example, my next novel does not take place uh, in the desert.
yeah,
My Hand of Adonai series actually at least begins in Minnesota. I've never been to Minnesota.
hmm
So I had to do some research to kind of figure that out. But one thing that I can't really figure out is how the people behave over there, the cultural idiosyncrasies that they have, whether, the fact that they call soda pop and things of that nature. It's a little bit, I mean, it's tiny, but what I am aware of, what I do know, is the culture within high schools. And these are teenagers that I'm writing about. And so um, kind of I've borrowed a little bit from what I see at my own high school, and I've transplanted that to Minnesota. Now, if you're from Minnesota, you might read my book and go, not even close. Like, this dude's way off. But I'm betting that because of what I know from small town, rural neighborhood kids at the high school where I work, is going to translate to small town, rural kids in Minnesota as well.
yeah, yeah. So I gotta say, like, I don't know that necessarily where you live is always going to shape your writing. But I think that, like Stephanie Meyer, when she wrote Twilight, She lives in Phoenix, which is the hottest place in the entire world ever. It's not, but it
Right.
feels that way. And
Well, I mean, it's
she
it's
wrote,
second to hell. So
yeah, she wrote about a place up in Washington on the Olympic Peninsula because she assumed that that's the wettest, greenest, most overcast place there is. And she loved the idea of that and thought it was really pretty and wanted to set her characters there, not to mention the fact that the overcast helped with the sparkly thing.
why?
It makes
Steve,
sense, man.
no, it does not. It makes no sense at all. That's something that should have been cut. She needs a better editor because that was just bad. I'm gonna make vampires sparkle. I'm just gonna throw away like 150 years worth of vampire history.
So, hey, I have a question for you. A
Sure.
challenge, really a challenge. Do you think you could just put on a Minnesota accent for us?
Minnesota? Sure. You
Don't
betcha.
about it?
I can
No,
talk Minnesota.
that's right. No doubt about it.
I need some more to pop.
Yep, Molly Jo was. She actually typed the accent. Writers, don't type out your accents and your dialogue. Where you actually like write the way that people sound. That's very
Dialect.
yeah. Dialect is the
Yeah.
word that I'm looking for. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's a no-no. But in a chat room, it's just great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Excellent.
I don't know. That's interesting. I gotta say, you know, it would be interesting to just do like a little bit of research and figure out a number of books, good famous books, and then determine where the writer lived when he or she wrote that book, and just see like where the lines are. It's kind of interesting where you could tell like the signature of a particular author in a given book, and
Right.
those particular identifying elements about them, and
Right.
you can probably draw some conclusions from the way that a book is written about the person just by the way that it's written,
Mhm.
And I think that maybe, just maybe, where you live might come through.
I agree. I think it
thought that
does.
So that was kind of a short-lived main topic, but hey, we're
Partially
running
because
up
we
on.
didn't have a guest, but we are running up against time too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So let's go ahead and I think we're right down to the end of our show here, Aaron. So. Was that crackly on your end?
Just at the end, a little bit.
It's not real
So.
great for some reason. I think the connection is poor, but regardless. Aaron, you want to go ahead and share contact information with us? I did not help you by typing this out in the show notes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I'm going to mess it up. Every week, you think I would get it by now. You can contact us via Facebook or on Twitter at First in Fiction. You can also find me on aarongamsky.com.
Yeah, there you go.
And
You
you're
can
at
find-
stephenmclean.wordpress.com.
Steve McLean, yeah. I don't really post there much at all because I work too much.
Yes,
And
you
when
do.
I'm not working, I'm here doing this podcast.
Indeed, you are.
It's my entire life. That's all I ever do.
Yeah. So Steve, if Heather and I ever cast without you, we're not going to have this fancy schmancy newfangled kind of setup, right? It's going to be boring, old, regular. Here's our topic. Let's go.
That's a really good point. I will have to try to figure out a way to
It's all on
help
your
us out
shoulders,
there.
dude.
We'll see. Like
All on your shoulders.
some of what I can do is, for instance, like the sound clip at the beginning of the show.
Mm-hmm.
This one right here.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
So that is a link that that takes you to a soundbite, and it's possible that might be. I might be able to do that for all of the sound clips in here. Just drop them into somewhere, and then you guys can play them as you go.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
might be able
so-
to do that.
Anyway, I'm gonna
Yeah.
be on top of this. So,
Yeah. Well, it was a learning experience. It was worth the try, and it was kind of fun. Would love to hear from the room what you guys thought, or leave a comment here at the. If you're listening to the audio podcast, please be sure to leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. So
That's it. All right.
that's it. Thank you all for
Okay.
joining us.
Until next time.
Good writing.
All right.
It's the longest clip ever.
I faded it